Yo, what's good? It's your man 100 Grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops. Tonight I wanted to do a video about Kevin Porter Jr. and why his best future is not with the Houston Rockets. If you like this video, I want you to smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. I appreciate all the love and support, definitely. Definitely am enjoying getting back to making these videos. The reason why I wanted to do this video in particular was because of something recently that kind of dawned on me. And it isn't that it just dawned on me now, but I think finding the words to really say it, because it needs to be said. It needs to be said. Kevin Porter Jr. is one of the most electrifying, talented, skilled guards that have come into the league in a long time. His combination of explosiveness, footwork, quickness, ball handling, vision, shooting, and just his natural feel. Like, they say like guys are a walking bucket. And what they're really saying is they have a natural intuitive inclination for moving their bodies around defenders and on the court that allows them to create shots at a level that very few can get to, because they can naturally feel how to create openings and opportunities for themselves. They can naturally sense and almost kind of foresee how they are going to manipulate a defender or a defense to shift so that they can get the shot that they want. And they have the confidence and the skill level to pull it off. A walking bucket. That's what Kevin Porter Jr. is. But the failure, I would say, and I'm not going to go, I don't want to go too hard on the Houston Rockets because they gave him a chance when Cleveland would not. And for good reason. I'm not going to be mad at Cleveland deciding, hey, we don't want that type of attitude and we're trying to rebuild something here, right? I totally get that. But where the Houston Rockets have messed up, have failed Kevin Porter Jr., is in trying to make him like somebody else. And I think we all know who that person is. It's the MVP, NBA scoring leader, future Hall of Fame, one of the greatest to ever do it, James Harden. You see, James Harden and Kevin Porter Jr. have some distinct similarities. I mean, they're both left-handed. They're both 3-layer, 4-layer scorers, great finishers, explosive, very quick off the bounce, good footwork, great touch. They have great passing ability. And they have an ability to shine with the ball in their hands. And I mean, when I say shine, I mean like these dudes, when they have the ball in their hands, they are ticket sales, what you mark on your calendar to go see. It's what they call box office. They're exciting. They are exciting to see. And the NBA is an entertainment industry. Make no mistake about it. For those of us who love the game at its purest, we have to understand that the NBA, the National Basketball Association, is an entertainment. And so their ability to entertain at the level that they can is absolutely spectacular. But they are not the same player. And some people will say, well, yeah, of course they're not the same player. No, you don't understand. Is that when you try to structure another player's development in the mold of someone else who they're not, what you do is you end up missing out on opportunities to actually help develop them in the truest sense of what they are, which maximizes their ability, versus trying to make them into something else, which actually puts a cap and minimizes their potential and their opportunities. Because they can't be the other person. They can only be themselves. No matter how much they grow and improve, they will never be the other person. And I'm going to give you an example. Some of you may remember when Derrick Rose first got into the NBA, he was electrifying. It was amazing. And at the same time, there was another player who came into the NBA. His name was Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook was a shooting guard, wing player his whole life. At UCLA, playing with Kevin Love, He was a wing player, or he was a guard, not point guard. And what ended up happening was the Oklahoma City Thunder, they saw Derrick Rose in Chicago and they was like, wow, look at what an explosive point guard can do. MVP candidate, the youngest ever, 21 years old. Wow, he is absolutely amazing. We want one of those. We think we might have one. So what did they do? They tried to shift Russell Westbrook over to full-time point guard. Remember at the time they had Derek Fisher, or they had brought in Derek Fisher to be his backcourt mate. He was somebody similar to an Eric Snow next to Allen Iverson. He was able to be the floor general, the team leader. He was able to be the wily veteran who was able to kind of take him under his wing and show him the ropes and make sure that he made the right decisions at the right time. And he allowed Russell Westbrook to play to his strengths, which was attacking the basket and getting out in transition, right? Maximizing his athleticism in the open court, because that is who he had always been his entire life. But when they shifted him over to point guard, we began to see Westbrook's limitations. And you have to understand, when you get to the NBA, you don't really become something else. You just learn to maximize what you are. And so if you try to become something else, you begin to get exposed. Now, because Westbrook was so explosive and exciting to watch and had a lot of success. I mean, he was an MVP, triple-double king, right? But what people overlooked was that he did not have the cerebral ability of a natural point guard who has been playing point guard their whole life. And so as a result, in these big moments, you would see Westbrook exposed. Right? Now, Westbrook is an amazing player, and that doesn't detract from him. But I believe if they had actually built around who he was, they would have gone much further. If they had recognized that they needed somebody who could complement him, who he really is, not who they wanted him to be, it would have given them a higher ceiling. Now, let's slide over to Kevin Porter Jr. Kevin Porter Jr., after going into the G League, after getting picked up by the Rockets, he was able to get his life together, get his focus, and he began to shine, show all this potential, so much so that the Houston Rockets decided to call him up. Right after the James Harden deal, he left, boom, here comes Kevin Porter Jr., boom. He jumps onto the scene and he's absolutely electrifying. He's amazing. Playing next to who? John Wall. John Wall, the consummate point guard, the floor general, the man who lives to facilitate, who averages 9-10 assists a game throughout his lifetime. This is what he does. He facilitates. He's a natural floor general and leader. He also defends. Right? He had the natural components that complemented Kevin Porter Jr.'s game and who he was going to be in the NBA, which is an electrifying scorer. But something the Houston Rockets decided to do, and you know what, you can't necessarily blame them entirely, because Jalen Green is an incredible talent. He's from Northern California, about 50 minutes from me, actually. And it's something amazing to see somebody so close to where you grew up, to where you live currently, make it to the stage that he has. Jalen Green is every bit the superstar that he is going to undoubtedly evolve into. The only thing was, Jalen Green was going to be playing in the same position, the same role that Kevin Porter Jr. had just found his best success in. And so what did the Houston Rockets try to do? They said, well, hey, you know what? Maybe what we can do is fix this and try to make it work by morphing Kevin Porter Jr. into more of this point guard role that James Harden used to play. Herein lies the problem. James Harden is an extremely cerebral player. Now, when I say cerebral, it's not to minimize Kevin Porter Jr.'s basketball intellect and understanding. I don't want to do that. But what I am pointing out is that there's a difference between growing up and developing your game for years at levels where you're dominating, where you can build the skills and the confidence and the experiences that allow you to operate at a high level when you get to the NBA, where it matters the most and you have the most competition, right? Developing those skills you will have confidence in to excel at this NBA level. There's a difference between garnering those skills throughout junior high, high school, college, and then in the NBA than trying to start in the NBA. Kevin Porter Jr. has never been a point guard. Now, I know sometimes you could point to the different high schools he played at, a bunch of different high schools, and they let him run point. The difference is a big difference between being a consummate point guard like a Jalen Brunson, someone who is getting his team involved, getting the system running smoothly, understands his teammates, the team chemistry, trying to get guys involved, getting guys going, making sure they're operating at their maximum, versus being the most talented person on the floor and saying it's better to just give me the ball and get out the way. Right? There's a difference. And now you're asking Kevin Porter Jr. to play in a role that he may not be suited for, that he may not have the skills and the experiences and the developed confidence to do what they're asking him to do. Now, I'm not saying that he can't grow in this role, but I'm saying there's going to be a cap. There's going to be a cap. Because Kevin Porter Jr. next to Jalen Green, when we're watching their chemistry, I think it's evident that they are two extremely talented, exciting guards who don't fit where it matters the most, right? Who don't really fit where you're going to need them to when it comes to trying to win at the highest level, which means they're going to have a cap. Because when they get to these higher levels, playoffs, right? Different rounds of the playoffs, teams are going to be better. They're going to be planning for them. And they're going to expose what we already know is there. Is that both of them need a floor general. Both of them require somebody with the basketball IQ, intellect, experience, confidence to make the right decisions at the right time, to get guys involved, to maximize their skill sets for the sake of winning. This is what the Tyus Jones type players of the league do. We have to understand it is very rare to find the explosive scoring ability and the floor generalship in the same player. The Ja Morants, the John Walls, the Derrick Rose. These guys are not common. And you get guys who might be close, right? Because they have certain skill sets, but that's not who they are. Now, a lot of teams actually utilize allowing off guards to play point guard for a season, like they did with Devin Booker, like they did with D Wade, like they did with Michael Jordan. All right, they let them play point guard for a year to develop that playmaking skills and getting that comfort level and making plays under pressure over and over again to get the repetition. And that's totally cool. But what most of those teams also don't do is then draft somebody who's just as talented or more talented than them, who's playing the position that eventually they need to go back to, which is shooting guard. And so now they have two extremely talented shooting guards who are overlapping one another. This is why, and I know some people don't agree with me, a lot of people don't. Some people might. But I thought the Houston Rockets should have drafted Evan Mobley. As we saw Evan Mobley be the runner-up for Rookie of the Year, have an amazing year, more and more so I said it would have been a far better fit. It would have been a far better fit. Now, I know some people are like, hey, you know what, sometimes you just got to go for talent. But last year's draft, it had a depth of talent that you could have chosen. You could have selected the best fit, and they didn't. And this is why I'm saying Kevin Porter Jr.'s best future is not going to be with the Houston Rockets. Is not going to be with the Houston Rockets. Because for him to optimize his potential, he will need to find some place where he can be that star guard, that off guard, that player who can focus in on his scoring and out of that nonstop attack mode that he's naturally in, can play make for others, not try to be the floor general, to get guys involved and set the table and find his buckets in between. It's two totally different roles. And one he's going to be forced into more and more as Jalen Green develops. Because as Jalen Green takes his steps and these leaps and bounds in terms of his development in the NBA, more and more the team is like, yo, this is the guy. Rightfully so. But it doesn't mean that Kevin Porter Jr. can't also be great, but he won't have the space to do it in Houston. Now, I know this may not be a popular opinion because everybody wants to think things can work out. Look, you have to understand the NBA It is what it is. You have a short window to optimize talent and opportunities and to develop your game. And what you want to be is in what they call a good situation, someplace that really accepts and rocks with who you are as a player and is willing to let you develop and not try to fit you and force you into some other mold, right? And so when I look at what they're doing in Houston, look, I love the pieces. Alperen Şengün, right? I even love Usman Garuba, Kenyon Martin Jr. I love Josh Christopher, right? I even like Deshaun Nix, right? Jabari Smith is a great pickup too, right? They got some beautiful pieces there. Jayshawn Tate. I fuck with the Rockets. I do. I do. I really do. But with this situation with Kevin Porter Jr., it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. Plain and simple. It just doesn't. And so, from my perspective, a trade needs to happen. A trade needs to happen. Now, where it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, I think in the next couple of years. They'll give it this season to see if they can work it out, if they can take a leap together. I doubt it. But I think in the next couple of seasons, you're going to see a trade happen. You're going to see it happen, especially as Kevin Porter Jr.'s contract comes up and they're going to have to look at, do we want to really sign him? Because there's going to be other teams going to say, I would love to have that guy. I would love to have that guy in a role that best suits him. Right? So I want to know what you all think. Do you all think that he can actually become what Houston Rockets are desiring him to be? Do you think it could work out? Do you think it needs to be a trade? Where do you think the trade might be to? Or who might try to just sign him outright when he becomes a free agent? Let me know what you think. Appreciate y'all listening to the video. Get at me on Twitter. The Rock Never Stops too. And I'm going to holler at y'all next time. Peace.